Debbie, it's always such a pleasure to see you. I never start with any kind of bio or anything like that because we always find all that out along the way. And I've interviewed you before, so I've asked you this question before, but I still love to always ask it. And that question is, when did you first know you were a filmmaker?
Wow. Now I've got to watch our old interviews to see how I answered that.
That's right.
Because,
We might catch you
well,
out this time.
yeah, I became, well, it's such a long, slow kind of evolution.
Right, right.
I've sort of been a filmmaker my whole life because I got a video camera in, I think it was 1980, and I would make my own Muppets, and I would also kit bash Airfix or Mattel.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there we go. And
Okay.
I would kit bash models and I would make like little spaceships and I'd put them on threads and I'd film them with an infrared camera to make it look like nighttime. And so I was playing with cameras and filmmaking, growing up. But
Right.
obviously, and then long story short, I started directing TV commercials. And then after many years of that, I eventually
Wait a minute. How did you go from Mattel toys and Airfix to directing commercials? What was the thing and what happened in between there to
so
go?
much happened in
Yeah,
between. It was it was
most
the easiest way to say this is I kind of slumdog millionaired my way into the industry. And what I mean by that is if you've ever seen Slumdog Millionaire, the end of the movie where he knows all the answers to the who wants to be a millionaire questions, he knows the answers because of all of the experiences of his life. And that's what
right.
happened to me. I got
Mm,
into technology at early age. I got into the internet when the web when it first
yes,
started in '88. I was a
yes.
studio engineer when I was 15, so I was familiar with nonlinear editing
Hey.
at the beginning of the desktop revolution.
Huh,
And then I was a bartender, so I heard a million billion stories from guests, and the guests who didn't have anything to say, I would regurgitate these million billion stories to them. So I had storytelling, and then my father. In the 70s was he owned the number one advertising agency in the Middle East. So I kind of had marketing in my blood growing up and this is
huh.
predating the desktop revolution. So it's all printing and marketing techniques, whether it be tint,
Right,
letraset, and
right.
these phrases kind of carried over to Photoshop, started using Photoshop when it went to color. So it's all these skills, all these Slumdog Millionaire skills that kind of led me to being a filmmaker. And I owned a bar in Vegas and I was responsible for making the ads and doing the
Right,
photos of the food for the menu
right.
and all that kind of thing. And a friend said, you know what, you should go to film school. And so I attended film school here in Las Vegas, the College of Southern Nevada. And in 2013, I won 4 Southwest Production Emmys for a short I did called Boy Meets Girl. And I thought, that's it, I know everything. I'm dropping out of film school. Hollywood doors are going to open for me.
Right.
And they didn't. They didn't because I was naive and inexperienced. So I spent the next 10 years, I guess, shooting commercials. And then eventually in 2020, I think I made the decision late 2020 to make my first feature film. And that's how we met because you held my hand through some of the process of raising capital. And the rest is history.
That's so good. That's so good. Um, there are these pieces that now make a lot more sense because of the current film that we're going to talk about. But you owned a bar and you had to do all the marketing, and then you already had experience with the marketing because your father owned the marketing agency, and that all makes sense. And I remember I had a boyfriend at one point who had a band, and we were always over at Kinko's at like 1 in the morning, putting these letters on, and making posters and things. You just reminded me of that because now we wouldn't do any of that. It's all
Yeah, just sit
computer.
at home and upload and off you
Yeah.
go.
You could even make a poster that looked like it was like that. That
Yeah.
looked like you had cut out the letters and so on, you know. But
Yeah,
we
when I was 17, I used to throw like really extravagant parties around the south of England, like really big parties, like 2,000 people type parties. And
mm,
I had to design the flyers, and it was all on layers of transparent layers and inked on,
right,
and
right.
like a little flip book of the layers of the different
Uh-huh.
color separations.
Yeah.
Wow.
I haven't thought about any of that for such a long time. It makes us seem old. Well,
Well,
me.
I was born in 19,
Uh,
so some days I feel old.
I mostly get younger every year,
But you look younger every
which
year.
is
What's your secret? I want your coffee.
miracles as my secret. Miracles. Having illnesses removed is my secret. As an
That's a
amazing.
blessing. That's a
Yeah,
blessing.
definitely. Um, so you were shooting commercials and but now I understand how you got into it, and it had something to do with the bartending, which I think is really amazing because when you and I were working together, I didn't learn about the bartending until we had been working together already for a couple of months. And somehow it came up in a conversation, and I said, "Oh, do you still know those people?" You're like, "Yeah, we're all friends." And I said, um, "Have you approached them to invest in your film?" And that sort of opened up a channel is how it was my experience being on my end of the phone. The something opened up when you told me about the bartending, and I was like, Flair bartending, what's that? What happened on your end of the phone?
Well, I think we both came to that sudden realization that wow, here is for me personally, there was an untapped resource, a community of people that I know and have known for a long time in my local city, right, in my geographical sphere,
Right.
who made a lot of money, who made a lot of it in cash. And I've known them so long that they've already bought their houses, bought their second cars, bought their boat, and
Mhm.
now, had money sitting in the bank. And when you're looking for investors, people with money in the bank is a great place to start. So that was the realization. And then obviously that led to, yeah, introductions and recommendations to other people within that world. And ultimately it led to this new movie.
That's right. That's
Right,
right.
yeah. And funnily enough, it all started with a podcast. About 3 years ago, I had these two friends who are old friends of mine who are legends in the bar industry, Rob Husted and Dean Saneels. And they have a podcast called Cocktail Network Live that you can find on YouTube. And they asked me to be a guest on it because they were curious about my past life as a bartender, but they were also curious about this whole new life I have as a filmmaker. And as we were reminiscing in the interview, at the end of it, I said to them, wow, if anyone made a documentary about that time, it should be us because we were there. And they said, great, let's do it. And I said, well, let me convince my business partner, Emmy-nominated producer Patrick Words. And we went out for a lunch, I think it was a curry, and I convinced him, hey, here's a great opportunity to make a film. But the real seal the deal thing with it was what, as you know, one of the hardest things for any filmmaker is connecting the film to the audience. And with Shaken and Stirred, the story of Flair bartending, we had a built-in audience because the two guys from the podcast, they already had 13,000 emails of Flair bartenders. And that was enough to convince me, that's a great place to start because we have a grassroots audience and a subject matter of documentary that has never been made before. And so that was an easy connection to make. And so that's how the film got started.
That's great. I haven't heard that story before, Debbie. That's awesome. Um, so when you made your first film, um, do you think that would you say today that you were thinking about connecting a film to an audience?
No, I wasn't.
You're so good. You're so good. You're telling all the truth, telling all
Yeah,
the
no, not at all. I mean, I was a typical artiste first time filmmaker where I'm like, I want to make what I want to make. The heart wants what the heart wants, right? And I made a soft cast, meaning no one famous,
right.
indie drama about homelessness, like during the pandemic. Okay, so you couldn't get a harder sell if you tried. Okay,
Exactly.
drama is a hard category. Homelessness is a tough subject. During the shutdown is a tough time to make a film, and not having any recognizable talent in your movie is a it's, that was a tough sell of a movie. I'm amazed it did as well as it did, but it's a tough sell. So it was actually
But at the time,
yeah,
I mean, it would never have crossed my mind to say, Debbie, don't make this movie because there would have been no point.
right.
You know, you
It's hard to tell a first time filmmaker to really get through to them the consequences of their actions. Because when you start a project, every project takes years, right? And when you start a project, you're full of beans and you're totally powered by the passion and excitement you have for that original idea. Okay. But 3 years later, when you're dragging it over the finish line, it's a little bit of a different story. So it's very hard to tell people at the beginning, but
yeah,
once you climb that mountain and you're on the other side, it's a different perspective.
yeah. I mean, it would never cross my mind to say, don't make this movie. This was the movie that you wanted to make. That was it. Um,
But ironically, the reason why I decided to connect an audience first to the next movie was because of a friend of mine who, at the time, he gave me an example of something that he did, and basically they did a pop-up exhibition in downtown LA of mermaids, and every tourist coming to town that had any interest in mermaids went to this exhibition. It only lasted a week, but they had about 100,000 people come through. They got all the emails. They took that to Hulu and said, "Do you want a show about mermaids? We have 100,000 mermaid fans." And Hulu said, "Sure." And that was the show. I think it's called Mermaids or Serpents or something. But so he taught me that. Now, the numbers don't apply nowadays. If you wanted to do that same kind of trick to Netflix, you'd have to come in with 1 million.
Much bigger number. Yeah.
Much bigger because this was, the movie business has changed so rapidly in just such a short period of time, and it's changed rapidly since the pandemic. So that wouldn't work now, but I did realize after that conversation, wow, if you connect to your audience first, and here's the proof of the pudding. We are self-distributing Shaken and Stirred. We didn't self-distribute the last movie, and we're not self-distributing the next movie.
Right.
But we are self-distributing this movie purely because we have a built-in audience and it made sense for this film. And we have made more money in pre-sales from Shaken and Stirred than we've made in 2 years from our last film.
Yes, although I would say that the first film, and I said this to you once when we were both in Miami, which was so fun.
Yeah.
Uh,
That was crazy because we literally bumped into each other at a show and didn't know.
didn't know we were
We were like, ah.
and it turned out you were a real person instead of a 2D person. I mean,
Yeah.
who
And
knew?
I'm taller than I look on TV.
Um, but the first film I have said there was an anti-marketing component going on
Right.
in that there was very little that you could do to really market that film. Another though, one marketing hook though that you were very, very passionate about for the first film was that it was a Las Vegas film. Did that help?
Yeah.
Did that help with the sales for your first film?
I think it would have given us a bump, but where it really helped making a Vegas-centric movie was I already had a great reputation in Las Vegas, which led to my opportunity to make the movie. And the reason why I had such a great reputation in the filmmaking community was because I finished every project that I started. Okay. And when you're starting off as a filmmaker making shorts, you're basically recruiting people to donate their time for free. And
Mm.
and you've got to give people a minimum of copy, credit, and meal, right? And if you don't make good on that promise of finishing the project, then you've essentially wasted those people's time because they want to see their name on the screen, they want to see their work on the screen. And because I finished every single short, regardless how ambitious they were, I had a solid reputation. And then making a Vegas-centric movie, yes, it gave maybe a little bump to sales, but I think what it really did is really establish me as a Vegas filmmaker. So much so that when we've just completed Shaken and Stirred, my second movie, which is, although it's a documentary, it is a Vegas-centric story. And so
Mm.
now the cumulative effect of having a good reputation and having been in Vegas 25 years and now having made two Vegas-centric movies, it means that the city has really embraced us and got behind us on this movie. All of a sudden, I did Fox 5 yesterday or the day before. I'm doing CBS in a couple days. There's all this press interest, and it's cumulative. It's all built upon little small successes in the past.
Hmm. That's really great. And so you've got the city behind you now.
100%, 100%, which is amazing.
That's fantastic. Uh, so so the first film was very Las Vegas, very, very Vegas centric. And the second film, shall we show a clip before we really dive
Oh,
in?
sure, sure. Are we going to play the trailer?
We're going to play the trailer. Is that right?
Amazing.
Awesome, awesome. And I still think it's amazing when I think about that moment where you said about the Flair bartending. And I was like, do you still know those people? Led all the way to this.
Yeah.
So Emily's doing her thing. All right, let's go.
I spent a month in New York and a month in Jamaica trading Tom Cruise and Brian Brown in a movie cocktail.
I want to do what that guy's doing. It made Flair mainstream.
Lights are set, judges are ready.
I stood there probably 20 minutes and just watched. I had goosebumps.
It's so difficult, it's so extreme.
Somebody should do a documentary.
Showmanship has been a big part of bartending since day one.
And then Vegas just blew up because, entertainment capital of the world.
I want to win.
$50,000, $100,000 purses at different competitions around the world.
I don't think people have ever really seen what we do to prepare for these things.
Chapow.
This is what it's all about.
So what went wrong? Egos took over and things were said which shouldn't have been said. It was going bigger and bigger and bigger.
There are fears the sell-off will continue on Wall Street.
The money went out the window. You can sell a cocktail. You can't sell flair behind the bar. We had to deal with the prissy-ass bartenders.
We all want to be the best.
Well, my move is more difficult because I make it look easy.
Nights like tonight make me want to just stop competing because I don't think I'm cut out for it.
And I was standing there with my tooth broke right in half.
Why do I do this? Why do I suffer through this?
I don't really know why it's male-dominated.
There's absolutely male toxicity.
You want to play with glass, you're going to cut yourself.
Literally was up here and we touched bottom.
Fabulous. Oh my goodness.
And you've seen the movie, right, Joanne?
Yes, I've seen the movie. I've seen the movie and I've seen the live cocktails.
Very cool.
When you were in Miami, you did such a great job with the serving cocktails and having the whole team there. And
Yeah, we were at the
Nappy.
Nappy show in Miami
Yeah.
a year ago, I think, a year ago, and we actually gave away 1,000 free non-alcoholic cocktails at the show to make friends with distributors and outlets.
Yeah. How did that work? Did it work for you having?
I don't think it did. I think
No.
no,
Okay.
no, it was a fantastically interesting experience because at that point we were thinking, wow, we can potentially distribute this movie and we could go to a show like Nappy, which traditionally is, I believe, TV distributors and
Right.
platforms who get together to license content. So we went to the show and we went with this grand plan of giving away all these drinks, making all these friends, and then selling to territories. We wanted to do like, $10,000 to a channel in Turkey and $5,000 for Fiji or whatever. That was the plan.
Right.
But what we discovered and this goes back to the industry changing so fast, is at that time, licensing for TV was massively in contraction. The NAPI show, as I understand, was half the size of the previous year.
True.
And to be honest, the only people licensing content was religious films, and the really faith-based. And the really interesting thing about faith-based that I learned at that show was it was less about impressing it or entertaining as many people as possible, and more about offending as few people as possible.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's fascinating. Yeah. So we felt that we actually wasted a ginormous sum of money on the trip, but we couldn't have known. It was a long shot, and sometimes you take these long shots and they don't work out, and you learn. And unfortunately, that was one of them.
Yeah.
But I think as far as looking back on missteps for this latest movie, I think that's probably the only misstep that we see right now.
That's great. What I went to NAPI. I didn't know you were going to be there. I went to NAPI because I always go to things to scout and see if it would be a good idea for my clients to go.
Sure, and it's in your back door, so why wouldn't you?
Yes, and I went and I came away thinking this is not for my clients. That was the conclusion that I came to. And NATP stands for the National Association of Television Programming Executives. I actually spoke to one of the Christian networks. I didn't know he had a Christian network. I just knew he had a network, and I happened to be sitting next to him. And I said to him, this is one of my favorite questions to ask people. I said, well, if the perfect project came across your desk today, what would it be? And he said, free.
Yeah, there's very little money in streaming, and I have very hot take opinions of distributors. And this is why it was so important to have an audience first. Because the movie industry is the only industry in the world where you say, you know what, I'm going to bake a pizza. Let's get all the ingredients for the pizza. Let's get everyone involved. Let's make a pizza. And you make this beautiful pizza. And then you say, is anyone hungry? Which is bananas, right? Because you should find out who's hungry and then make the pizza for them.
Right.
And unfortunately,
maybe they don't like pizza.
Or maybe they don't like pizza. Exactly. So this movie, that's why it was so important to establish the appetite and the for the pizza and the audience, establish their appetite and the size of the audience, and build this movie with that in mind. Because when you make a movie, it's not about you, it's about the people that want to watch it.
That's right. It's about the audience.
Correct.
But I think that what I witnessed in you was this big shift from not having that understanding to having that understanding. So you started out with the 13,000 email list of Flair bartenders. Who knew that there were so many Flair bartenders? Did you start marketing to the list before you made the film?
The first thing we did was sanitize the list, which means verifying how many of those are accurate and still
actual people.
Yeah, and still, because like if you build an email list over a long time, people change email addresses,
Right.
People move, people whatever. So we had to sanitize the list and cut it down, and it actually whittled down to about 6,000, which was still a good number.
Beginning, yeah.
Yeah. But we start the moment there's a moment when you greenlight yourself as an independent filmmaker, when you say, I'm going to do this next project, and this is the point of no return, because me and maybe my business partner or a stakeholder have committed, and this is what we're doing, and there's a line, and we've crossed that line, and we're now going to execute over 3, 4, 5 years or whatever it is. And the moment that we make that decision and greenlight ourselves is the moment we start marketing.
Right. Very nice, very nice. So, so you started marketing and then you made the film. And when you raised the money to make this film, did you go to your bartending friend community that you had already had brought in on your first film?
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm a big believer in momentum. If you keep momentum up, it's very hard to slow that down. So I was hyper aware that 80% of all filmmakers only make one movie. And I didn't want to be in that 80% because for me, this is a career, not a hobby. And so I was so eager, like as I'm finishing up the first film, I'm stressing about how do I get the second one made. So I knew before the first one was even out that I could capitalize on all this momentum and goodwill and people talking to me about the first film and people investing in the first film and all that momentum, I can capitalize on it and quickly raise the money for the next one before we even know if the first one's a flop or a hit. I kind of snuck it in. So that was my attitude going into raising money. So obviously the first people I went to was our first initial investors from the first movie. But then I expanded that to the bartending community. And obviously because this film was bartending centric, it opened up a huge community to me of it was an easier sell to bartenders who were desperate to see this movie anyway, to say, hey, would you like to be part of it? I've got this great opportunity for you. So absolutely, we went to the community, and I would say it was most of the money came from the bartending community. And also a couple companies have stepped up and stepped in from the bartending world, specifically Finest Call, barproducts.com, and Patron. And a huge chunk of the money came from those companies, which was amazing because now they have a vested interest in the success. And so there is ongoing support from those companies for the next few years in festivals, in events, screenings, all of that. And one thing I want to share with you and your viewers that I think is really exciting is our affiliate program. In the movie, let me see, I've got some postcards in front of me so I can show you examples. The movie, the cover star is Christian Delpesh, and he's on the poster of the movie. It looks like that. But all the bartenders in our movie have huge social media followings.
Right.
So what we did is we created different postcards for the different bartenders in the movie, and they each have a QR code. And so we sent these postcards to the bartenders, and so they give these out to their guests at the bar. And anytime someone scans the movie, they can then purchase the movie, and then that bartender gets 10%. So we empowered the stars of the movie to make money from the movie. And as a result, we have these postcards in bartending schools in Cape Town, London, Paris, and Rome. And in addition, barproducts.com, which is the largest supplier of bar products in the world, they ship out these postcards in every single one of their packages, and they shipped 77,000 packages last year. So this is so we have, like, by involving these stakeholders who were had skin in the game in the industry, it was a really smart move and has really managed to elevate the project.
And Debbie, this is how far we have come. We haven't even talked about the movie.
Yeah.
About the movie, we just talked about marketing the movie. But I because I was just thinking about, there's something in the movie where some of the bartenders talk about some of these companies, but in the sense of, well, they're trying to promote their careers, or they're trying to promote the competitions, and so they are trying to work with the companies that are interested in bartending.
Yeah.
And now in real life, you're getting I don't know if it's the same companies that are mentioned in the movie, but
most likely. But the funny thing is we're talking about marketing, and I recently started a YouTube channel. And I put out between 30-minute and 3-hour videos every day. I know that sounds nuts. And it's a deep dive behind the scenes, just watching myself, my business partner Patrick, work and what we go through on a day-to-day for the realities of independent filmmaking. And quite often you'll hear me say to the camera, I'll be talking about something that is a big pressing issue that day. Like the other day, it was the dehydrated dragon fruit garnishes that are going on the cocktails at the premiere. or something to do with the postcards not getting to Portugal on time. And quite often you'll hear me say to the camera, what the hell does this have to do with filmmaking? Like, why am I dragged into all of this? And the answer is, it has everything to do with independent filmmaking. When you're the independent filmmaker, no one's going to do it for you. So if you just have a hope and a dream to make a movie, good luck with that, but it's a lot more than that. Because if you're an independent filmmaker, you are the studio, the marketing company, the event manager, all of it. It all falls on your shoulders. And if you can put together a great team that can share that, amazing. But to think that you can just make a movie and be done with it, that's not reality.
And I think that it's kind of worse than that, because I think that when the filmmaker makes a film that's kind of, you know, anti-marketing, and they're like, no, I got to make this drama, or I got to make this comedy, it's got no names, and but really they're not thinking about, but I really want an audience.
Yeah.
I really want an audience. You know,
of course you want an audience.
And
One of the biggest mistakes people say, sorry, one of the biggest mistakes I hear people say to me, because I get pitched all the time, especially now, a lot. And people say to me, I've got a great idea for a franchise, and I guarantee you it will have a sequel. You know who the only person that can guarantee you if you get a sequel is? The audience. Right. And if a filmmaker comes to me not knowing that, it shows you their naivety.
Yeah, and filmmakers are just not focused on the things that are going to make their film successful. Like, did those cards get to Portugal?
Let me give you a crazy story about international posting and stuff. So I explained how we have these postcards going all around the world because of political retaliatory actions between countries. We found out that we cannot send postcards to, I think it was France and Italy.
Wow.
So we had to send them to someone in England who then sent them on. And I might be getting these countries a bit muddled, but there was 2 other countries like Spain and Spain and Italy where there's $400 surcharge to send a paper product. So if you send from America to, I think, Italy right now, a birthday card, you have to spend an extra $400. So these are the things you don't think about as a filmmaker, because why would you? You're thinking about cameras and actors and colors and shapes and story and all the exciting stuff. None of the unglamorous nitty-gritty of what it takes to get the word out.
Yes. And what I wanted to say about the movie, because we keep going back to marketing, which is fine. I can talk to you about marketing all day. But what I wanted to say, I told Debbie, I don't even drink. I just celebrated 35 years sobriety last year. So I don't even drink. But I loved this film so much. And I told Debbie, I realized halfway through the film that I had this big smile on my face. And I was watching the film with this big smile on my face because it's so much fun. And it's really a competition, you know, and people are really into the competition, you know.
Yeah.
And they're really into excellence. They're really into winning. They're really into the whole life is built around the competition, and it's so much fun. And the characters are lovely and super nice. And I know there was something in the trailer that said about things were said that shouldn't have been said, but it just felt like such a wonderful community. And I felt
It is.
Yeah, I was being given a little window, which I always think is the best filmmaking, a little window into a world I would never be a part of.
Right. And I think that's what's so interesting is that in Flair Bartending's heyday 20 years ago, it never really crossed over to something like the X Games when it had the opportunity to. And that's because you can't market a bottle of Patron to a 5-year-old in the same way that you can with a skateboard. So it's always been underground. And that's exactly why I wanted to make this movie. Because I was like, someone once said to me, what do you like to film? I said, anything that moves. Right? Because you want to see movement. You don't want to see something just right? So so it's an exciting, entertaining visual treat
Yes,
about a world that most people don't know because it never crossed over into mainstream media. So
right.
that was really juicy for me. And then, of course, the audience as well. And so all these things just felt like, wow, this just fell in my lap.
Well, so when you started out with your first list, your $13,000 list that you sanitized down to 6,
Yeah.
where would you say your list is now?
Probably like, well, it's interesting because the email list isn't nearly as big as our reach. The email list is probably around 7,000, but
Oh, okay. Mhm.
but our reach is well over 50,000 a month. We posted the trailer, the 4 producers, myself and my 3 partners. We posted it each on our Facebook and our Instagram, and with no paid anything, marketing, advertising, no paid ads, we got 70,000 views on that first post organically, which just, you know, told us immediately we picked the right people in the movie to help push the word out there. Because like I said, a lot of these bartenders are massive influencers. And so that had massive traction around the world. And now it's really hard to measure our reach because like
Yes.
I said, I'm doing TV interviews. This is my second interview of the day. We cracked the nut on how to get press. And I'm willing to share that secret with you guys if you'd like to hear that.
Oh, I would love to hear that, please.
Yeah. So
Secrets.
look,
Any secrets are good.
yeah. So the nut to getting press is this. The trick to getting press is this. You have to give them a story, right? And let me give you an example of what I mean. If we sent a press release to the LA Times saying 1905 film celebrates our new movie, so what? So what? Especially to the LA Times. So
Right.
what? Right? But one of the stars of our film is from Texas. So if we tailor our press release to outlets in Texas and we say local Texas boy makes good in history making world's first movie of its kind, that's a story. And that's worked for us. So we've been getting national press across the country, and starting to get a little press around the world now, featuring our different bartenders by making it about the 2 facts that this is the world's first ever feature documentary about the underground world of competitive Flair bartending, and targeting the locale with highlighting, you know, someone from that locale in that world history making movie. So that was the nut to give someone a story, because then they can run that. Then they're like, you know, because they get 1 million, we just did this, write about us.
Yes,
No,
yes.
that's the wrong idea. You got to make a story, and then they pick it up. So now that we're getting TV and national press and a little bit of international press, it's very hard to measure our reach. And to be honest, the only way to really measure that is sales.
Sales.
And as I said, the sales from our pre-release have been more than the last 2 years of our first film.
When is the actual release?
Sure. So yeah, so we decided to self-distribute, which is controversial a little in the community, and it's so funny because I had a pretty big distributor. When I told them that we were going to self-distribute, they said, when you come to make your next movie, no one's going to take you seriously because you self-distributed your last movie.
Oh dear.
I said, with all due respect, if we 3x, 5x, or 10x our money, no one's going to give a hoot cahoot how we distributed it. They're just going to want to know how we did it.
That's right.
So anyways, getting back to the question on the so because we're self-distributing, it's there are many windows and phases of this. The first phase is TVOD, transactional video on demand, that we do through off-the-shelf technology using Vimeo OTT, which is a long fancy way of saying the movie is available now for pre-order with 10% off at flairdocumentary.com. And then on Tuesday next week, the 26th of March, the day after the world premiere, it will be available worldwide through that website for purchase or rent. And you can stream it from that website. That'll happen through its festival run of about 6 months. Then it will be on Amazon on its second phase of transactional video on demand. Then it will move to AVOD or fast channels, advertising video on demand. So it'll be everything from Tubi to all the channels like that. And then eventually in maybe 2 years' time, it will be free on more AVODs on the last leg of its AVOD window, which will be things like YouTube. So
you'll always be able to buy it at your website.
Yeah,
right?
well, in fact, the director's cut is what is on the website, so that would be about 10 minutes longer than any of those other versions. So
Right.
if you want the whole thing, you'll always have to go to our website.
Nice.
And it's really nice having that because we can control the windows, we can control the pricing, and it's bananas, it's apples to oranges, the difference in what we can make. And we are using the same tools that the distributors are using. So, and we would be doing the same amount of marketing as if we went with distributors.
I don't really see though that any distributor, any sales agent, any distributor could match what you're doing in terms of marketing.
Right, absolutely. And let me give you a couple hot takes. First of all, I'll tell you a little success story. We had a meeting with a distributor in France recently, and we liked them because they were all about non-exclusive. They were cool with us selling it on a website, and they would handle TV licensing in Europe. And we had the meeting and we said, hey guys, we've decided to fully self-distribute it, and if there's still space for you to do that, we're interested in talking about that. And they said, well, tell us your distribution strategy. And we told them, and they said, I'm sorry, guys, but in all honesty, you've not left a penny on the table for us. And we were like, this is awesome. We were like, okay, we can work together. Thank you for your honesty and your candor, and we still love you guys, and let's stay friends, and we'll catch up at Cannes or wherever. But it's amazing because they basically told us that we're doing such a good job that they couldn't help us.
Right.
So, but I do want to say something that's controversial and a hot take, if you guys are ready for this.
Ready, always.
Okay, so I'll just caveat with what I'm about to say with, I have a lot of friends that work at distribution companies, and they are good people, and I love them, okay? It's not the people that is broken in the distribution model. It's the distribution model. And this is my opinion, so take it with a big pinch of salt. But I believe the problem with the majority of distributors, not all, but the vast majority, and when I say vast majority, I'm talking like maybe 96% of them, okay? The problem is their business model is to make a little bit of money off a lot of filmmakers, which is great for the distribution company, but it doesn't do anything for the distributor. Now, if you're wondering, well, which distributors are you talking about? I see distributors in 3 camps. You have your major studios, obviously your Sonys and your Warner Brothers and your Lionsgates, and that forms a handful of maybe 6 or 7. Then you've got your mini majors, which are about 30, and that includes your Blumhouses, your A24s, your Screen Gems. And then you have everyone else, and there are literally thousands. And it's that literally thousands who their business model is not it's not nefarious in nature, because they're not trying to be nefarious. It's and they're not nefarious. I'm not saying that. It's just that the business model is to make if they make a little bit of money off a lot of people, they're happy with that. And that's not, the filmmakers aren't happy with that. So for those reasons, and the fact that we had a built-in audience, it made sense for us to distribute this movie.
Yeah. As I said, there is no way that any distribution company can match what you're doing in terms of marketing. There is no way. They couldn't know the Flair bartending. Well, that's it. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, they would have problems contacting Patron to
Right.
have that conversation.
Right.
And something that I'm personally really proud of, I just got to toot my own little horn a second, because I am a filmmaker first, right? I'm shapes and colors. But I found the Patron deal. I negotiated the Patron deal. I wrote the contracts for the Patron deal, and I closed the Patron deal, and I got the money. And Patron is a really, really big major brand, globally recognized, obviously. And so I was very personally proud of that, because that was very out of my wheelhouse.
Yeah, and as I said, again, it's just not something any other company could match.
Yeah.
And I often like to say this, filmmakers often have a real paranoia about, oh, my script is going to get stolen or whatever. And I like to say, look, if I took your film, if I said, oh, that Flair bartending idea, what a great idea. I'm going to make a documentary about Flair bartending. I couldn't possibly replicate what you're doing. Because I
Well,
don't know the first thing. I don't know
yeah.
the first person.
There's that saying, a plan is only as good as the person that executes it. And in fact, that's one of my pet peeves when people pitch me something and I'm like, sure, I'll read it. And they're like, can you sign an NDA? And I'm like, why are you making it harder for me to read it? I have no intention of ripping your thing off. I'm far too busy, like a lot of people. I mean, of course, you got to be protective of your work, but there are mechanisms for that.
Right.
Like the Library of Congress, you can, copyright it with the Library of Congress for a very low fee, and it will be ironclad. And then you don't have to bother people with why do I have to print off an NDA,
I
read
think
it,
it's
sign
not,
it,
I
scan
think
it,
it's
send
not
it
about,
back?
it's not the NDA, but basically the filmmaker has basically just said, I don't know what I'm doing.
Exactly.
That's all. They've said, I
Exactly.
don't know what I'm doing. And they're pitching you because they want you to come in and produce their film. And they've already told you, I don't know what I'm doing.
Do you know how much money I would make if someone stole my stuff? I would love for someone to steal my stuff. Seriously. Like, because it's Library of Congress, copywritten. All our projects are at an early stage.
Yes.
To protect us, and that's the way you protect it. Some people say, oh, if you also do the WGA, East and West, the Writers Guild of America, you can do that, but honestly, it's not going to give you any legal protection. There's only one way to legally protect yourself, and that's the Library of Congress. So I would love it if Warner Brothers ripped me off right now. Oh my gosh, I would make so much money.
Yeah, I just spoke to somebody last week who's absolutely convinced that something that he wrote has been turned into a show, and I'm like, I don't.
Well, you know what's funny is a lot of this happens all the time.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon for ideas to be similar at the
Yeah.
same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it was so funny. Someone sent me a deck recently, as an example deck of a deck that they liked. And it was all very hush hush because it's a big project, right? And they wanted me to not share it with anyone. And it was so funny because when I got the deck, the project had the same name as a short I had made years and years and years ago. So even titles and ideas, it's not uncommon to the Towering Inferno is a great example of that. There were literally two books at the same time about a hotel, a towering building in the 70s catching fire. That it was the first time two major studios ever collaborated to make a film, because one studio had the rights to one studio had the rights to the other, and they were like, this is the same story. So it's not uncommon.
Right. I want to end, and if anybody has a question, just raise your hand. But I want to end with having you tell us about your next film.
Yeah, it's crazy because I always tell people I can't get to the next film until we successfully launch this one, and it feels like I can't get to my pudding till I eat my ding-dings. So I've been really trying to finish my plate really quickly lately, because every filmmaker, if you ask them what they're most excited about, it's always the next project, right? Because the project they're working on, they're already, been working on for a long time. So we've been in development of our next film for the last year and a half. It is a horror called Scissor Mouth. And literally in about 2-3 weeks, we start that journey, that multi-year journey. It's incredible. I've been working full-time as a feature film director nonstop since 2020, early 2021. And here we go again. We're straight into the next film. It's going to be at least 10 times the size of our last budget, so it's going to be over $1 million film. Currently, we're weighing up whether we're going to film it in Poland next year or New England or West Virginia. There's even talk of potentially filming it this fall, but I think that's a long shot. Chances are we'll film it next year. But I'm very excited because it's 10 times bigger than the last movie. And it's a horror. Of course, I always do that. A horror. It's a cautionary tale about the cruelty of vanity. It's a female-driven, elevated horror set in Texas in the 80s, with a small cast of 12 and maybe 3 or 4 locations. Very excited about it. Can't wait to start that journey. There's so many unknowns. But it's really cool to see the progress and the evolution of each project builds upon the experience and knowledge of the last, as it should. And so, and that should be a cautionary tale as well. Sometimes you get filmmakers come up to me saying, my first film is going to be $60 million. I'm like, it's not. It's not. No one, you're not even going to get bonded, right? You're not even
The
on a
sign
list.
across the head that says, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, you're not even going to get, you personally are not going to get insured to make that. So it's just not, it's not going to happen. Even if you could find the money, which you won't. I hate to say that, and some people get so upset and so buttsore. They're like, but I can do this and I can do that. I'm sure you're incredibly capable. So am I. So are many other people. There are hundreds of thousands of really talented people out there. I just happen to be one of them, and so do the people I speak to. So it's not to do with talent. It's just to do with the realities and the technicalities of what it takes to make bigger and bigger films to reach wider and wider audiences. And there will always be the outlier, but for the rest of us mortals, it takes time to build upon the success of each previous success.
I'm about to teach a class every quarter. I teach a 2-day class, and this is about it's called How to Land Investors for Your Film. And the first part that I'm going to teach is going to be called Expanding Mindset versus Being Delusional.
Taught me that. One of my favorite things that I learned from you from day one, Joanne, was how to retool my language when speaking to investors. I was like, please invest in this. Please give me your money.
Give me your money.
Because it's going to open up on a wide, and they're going to walk into frame and it's going to be nighttime. It's like, what the hell am I doing? You were like, no, Debbie, you're not asking for money. You're offering an opportunity. Okay, an investment opportunity, and you helped me retool my language at every step. And as I learned that process, it made me grow exponentially as a filmmaker during that process of making my first film. So thank you.
Yes, and it was so amazing to see your mind opening up and expanding, because that's what happens. But there's also this thing where you are meeting them, I'm meeting them, they're all coming now to pitch you to make their movies, where there's a sort of a fake confidence that's based in delusion.
Yeah,
it's not based in reality.
But even though I've grown, I still have a little bit of that because I don't know everything, and that will diminish as I make this next film. And you can't know everything. And here's the interesting thing: even if you know everything, results may vary. And here's the reason why. I've always been the kind of person that if you give me a ball, I'm going to run with it. Okay? If you tell me the answer to a question, I'm going to ask another 10 questions. All right? And some people aren't like that. Some people will be satisfied with the answer and feel like they know the subject. Someone once told me, you know what the difference between millionaires and billionaires is? Billionaires are endlessly curious about everything.
That's interesting.
It's really interesting. And I've always been endlessly curious about everything. I spend about 20% of my week learning. Not just about film, about everything. I was learning about, just 2 days ago, I was deeply engrossed in learning about the ski industry in America. Not for any other reason than it just caught my attention, started reading something. And then it, so if you're the kind of person that is gonna take what you know and what you have and dig deeper and learn more and bring more to the table on it, then you're just going to create something that ends up having its own gravity, which leads to momentum.
I just want to check if anybody has a question before we close. Yes, Stephen, please come on down.
Hi, Stephen.
You're muted.
You're muted.
You're muted, Stephen.
You're muted, but I can read lips, and if you're asking me how great my hair looks, it's because
There you
I'm new to this. Zoom, and I'm also watching my doggy to make sure he's still breathing. So
Aw.
keep turning around. Just a question you mentioned about the fact that if somebody took your film and or your subject and plagiarized it or whatever you used and made money off of it, you'd love that, especially Warner Brothers, quote unquote. Remember you said
Gotta
something?
be careful what I say about Warner Brothers because I do have a relationship with them, so I was joking when I said Warner Brothers.
Well, whatever. I mean, just to start. So I had an issue when I published a book, a memoir. It went wild. It went crazy. It was all over the media, television, everything. And what turned out was while it was the publicity tour was going on maybe 8, 10 years ago, people were calling me and say, Amazon is streaming your story on 7 seasons on Amazon Prime. And some of them said, you should consider, suing them because they took your story. Now, obviously, I'm not going to do that because it's not. I wouldn't know how to do it. I don't want to spend time on that. But would that devalue the opportunity to make a film based on my book, which is the true memoir, that might have some resemblance to a series that was already a major hit with Amazon?
Sure. First question, did you copyright your story with the Library of Congress?
Everything.
Everything.
I'm an insurance executive. I do everything. I'm anal. Lock, stock, barrel, registered, copyrighted, got all kinds of releases. I own everything. It's in the Library of Congress. Yes.
Okay, so the first thing that springs to mind is if you believe that you truly have been ripped off, you should speak to a lawyer. Now, from the lawyer's point of view, you know who they want to go after? Whoever has the most money.
Of course.
And in this case, Amazon has bucket loads of cash, right? So if you speak to a lawyer who agrees that you have a case, they'll be licking their lips, thinking they could, win this against Amazon. So my first thought is, you should follow up on it with a reputable entertainment lawyer, because they will tell you whether you do have a case or not. And this isn't, legal advice. This is just practical advice. Yeah.
The problem is I live in Miami and there's a dime a dozen. Some of them are real, some of them are artificial play, entertainment lawyers. So that's what I would have to find.
Sure. Well, the good thing on that, Stephen, is that in this day and age, we can Zoom with lawyers anywhere, and nearly all lawyers will give you at least a 10-15 minute free consultation to answer some questions. And if they can't answer some basic questions in that 15 minutes, that tells you everything you need to know about that specific lawyer.
Got it. But that being said, I'm not interested in suing and making money. I'm interested in, which is why I got in touch with Joanne, was taking my
Sure.
my book and turning it into a film, which it could be a dramedy, a comedy, many different ways, all true, factual.
Right. So again, this would be a legal question, because if you went full steam ahead and made that, maybe Amazon might sue you because you never defended your legitimate claim against the original story in the first place.
Say
So
that again?
if you went ahead and made this,
Film?
yeah, Amazon might be in a position to sue you for copying their idea, because when you had the opportunity to defend your original claim, you chose not to. Okay, so again, this is not legal advice, but the advice that I can give you that's pretty clear is this would be a question for a lawyer.
But from your point of view, and I understand that, thank you very much. From your point of view as a filmmaker,
yeah,
and your fundraiser and everything, would this hamper me or put a black mark on me from trying to raise money to make a film because I'm going after the
yeah, I think it would, because if I was an investor and you told me you're going to make a film and there's a potential copyright issue with Amazon, I'm going to say to you as an investor, that pushes me away from wanting to invest your movie until you resolve whatever issue you have.
That's what I thought.
But I happen to know about this project and there is no issue because it's a relative of Stephen's. And so I go back to Stephen could give me the script of his film and I could go make the film. he could give Debbie the script. She could go make the film, and our films would not be the same as Steven's film.
Absolutely, but if it's same character names with the same plot, then it could be. I mean, again, it's if you're concerned legally, you have to speak to a legal beagle.
No, I'm not, I was years ago, but you know, time heals everything and I'm way past it. And now, because of Joanne, you know, she's pushing me into doing what I gave up on, because of what I have is something that's gold, that just needs to be massaged and written and highlighted and everything, and then find the right investors and redo it, market, package in a different way. But it's all true.
Sure.
And
So all a true story. So
if you know for sure 100% there is no legal issue, I wouldn't bring that up with an investor, because why worry them about something that you know?
That's what I want to know.
yeah,
I'm not interested in going down the rabbit hole with attorneys.
Right.
I just want to come in clean.
Yeah, generally investors have very little bandwidth.
The one thing that when I started to do with the get investors.
Stephen, I'm going to have to cut this off because I'm starting my class
Okay.
at 1:30.
All
So
right, I'm gonna be there.
normally we chat and hang out, but I've got to get to my next class.
No
which is
problem.
called
Thank you.
You're welcome, Stephen. Good luck with the movie. You're going to kill it.
Thank you very much. God bless. Thank you.
Good to
I'll
see you,
see you at
Stephen.
1:30, Joanne.
Oh, lovely. Excellent.
Yeah,
Excellent.
I'm sitting here watching my doggy, and so I'm just, you know, he's
Right. You
breathing
can't go
his last
anywhere.
breaths. So I'm just, you know, something to distract me and new thoughts in my head. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Debbie, thank you so much. It's always just too much fun to hang out. So
Always fun. I can't wait to see you next time in person and give you a big hug.
yes, absolutely. And enjoy your next interview.
Thank you. Well done. All right, guys, it's a pleasure. Laurie, I didn't get a chance to say hi to you, but hi, Laurie, and I can't wait to see you at the premiere.
Can't wait to. Thank you.
Bye,
Love you.
Laurie.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, Emily. Bye.